stale ducks are the kind of ducks that you don't want to call at because they've been hearing guys call at them for the last 2 weeks. They've seen mojos. They've seen that same little decoy spread that everybody does. You really need to try to mix it up and, no mojos, maybe no calling, maybe build a wide spread, something very open, not all compact together,
All right, what is up, everybody? Just Mark today. Well, Mark and our special guest. Now, very few things are as fun as waterfowl hunting. And with that in mind, we're about to have a really fun conversation about waterfowling with Joe Palumbo. He says it's like Columbo with a P. So apparently we've got the duck detective on our hands to break down duck hunting with us. We're gonna go through I guess kind of like a lot of the different categories or variables to keep in mind when you're duck hunting. Now Joe is part of the gang over at Heartland Waterfowl, so a lot of experience on his side. So, Joe, before we dive too deep here, pun intended, tell us a little bit about who you are, kind of your duck hunting pedigree, if you will, how you got linked up with the guys over at Heartland Waterfowl, and then we'll jump in.
Right on. I just want to start off by saying thanks for having me on. It's really good to get on here and talk to you guys and answer any questions that viewers might have. But anyway, Joe Palumbo. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. That's where I cut my teeth growing up waterfowl hunting. And I got into competition calling at a very young age. I was fortunate enough growing up on the East Coast to have a lot of, OG mentors like Sean Mann, Tim Grounds, Fred Zink, Al Dagger, John Taylor, all these guys that are just, true waterfowl hunters. I was fortunate enough to get a lot of tutelage from those guys growing up, and I took the competition calling. Did that, all through my teens and into my early 20s. Competed in Stuttgart for Worlds, World Duck, Easton for the World Goose. But when I got to the age, got out of high school and started, obviously wanting to make some money and, start a career, I chose, guiding waterfowl hunts, for the season. And I got hooked up in North Dakota when I was 19 and flew out there, got my guide license, and got hooked up at a lodge that is owned by a guy named Nate Flynn. Okay, Nate Flynn is part of Heartland Bow Hunter. Whenever, the HB guys would come up early season, they'd come to our lodge up there and shoot velvet bucks, this and that, film a couple episodes. And whenever, a couple years down the line, whenever they wanted to start Heartland Waterfowl, those guys needed a couple days to get some footage and, shoot some ducks on film for their kind of pilot episode to present to the Outdoor Channel. And so Nate, being affiliated with Heartland Bow Hunter, was automatically like, yeah, you guys come up. Joe has a couple of days off. He'll be able to help you out and show you where some ducks are. And those, from the first morning, I went out with those guys, with Logan, Ronnie, Matt. We went out and started hunting. It was like instant. We just became really good friends right off the jump. And then it turned into, getting invited on a couple other trips, not just being in North Dakota, but, they would call up and say, man, you want to come join in on this trip? And then it was, maybe, you should get a camera. If you get a camera and learn how to film and take some pics, you'll be able to get invited on more trips. So it's crazy how it just all kind of snowballed just from one little meeting in North Dakota 9 years ago now. I mean, we're filming season 9 right now, and it's just been a wild ride. I mean, it's crazy how, one little thing can get you hooked up with, something like Heartland Waterfowl. So,
man, that's so cool. Yeah, it is crazy how the stars align like that, and you find yourself just on a wild, cool, crazy path in life. And yeah, that's too funny. Like, hey, we really enjoy your company. We like hunting together, but
Yeah,
You're gonna have to start working.
exactly. Yeah, you can't just be the guy shooting every time. You got to pick up a camera, dude. Come on, help out.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. And so, but your kind of home base is Texas now, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So I moved to West Texas 10 years ago, and I got hooked up with a guy down here who's big into oil field. He has a couple oil field companies, and he wanted to kind of start an outfitting company down here. And I actually met him in North Dakota as well on a duck hunt at our lodge up there. And he offered me a job to come to West Texas. And at the time, I didn't know anybody in West Texas. But what I did know is I was 24. All I had was some duck decoys and a black lab and a pickup truck, and I was willing to go wherever the work was. So I moved my stuff down to Midland out here in West Texas, and I've been here ever since. So now I run a hunting and fishing operation based out of West Texas. We do everything from dove to blue quail, mule deer, axis deer, whitetail, you name it. If Texas has it to offer, we pretty much chase it. And from there, we started a fly fishing operation in Belize 2 years ago. We just got that up and running. So it's crazy how, it started as just, doing a couple weeks of duck hunting, to now it's guiding and outfitting all year long. I mean, from one season to the next. So it's been a wild couple of years, no doubt about it.
Man, I believe it. Yeah, I'm looking and I can kind of see behind you, and definitely a West Texas vibe. I see an aoudad horn creeping out in the background, a couple nice whitetails, big old bass.
There's a bass. There's a couple ducks up there too, a couple pintails, but yeah, man, we do it all. And fortunately, the guy I got hooked up with down here, he understands that North Dakota has, it's where I started, and I still have the opportunity to go up there every year and guide hunts. And so I'll leave here next week, go to North Dakota for 8 weeks, come back to West Texas, first, second week in October, and then start getting right into deer hunting, mule deer. Then we do sandhill cranes and blue quail through February. And next thing you know, it's time to go fishing. So,
yeah, man, you guys in Texas, that's one of the few states that has a sandhill crane season, at least to my knowledge.
Yeah, so there's only a handful of states in the country where you can shoot sandhill cranes now, but it's becoming more and more popular, without a doubt. It is, it's a bucket list thing to some guys. A lot of guys have never done it, and we're fortunate enough here in West Texas where we get a very large migration of sandhill cranes that come through here, and they even go down into Mexico. So they even go a little bit farther south than where I'm at. But, that's usually what I target most of January is sandhill cranes. And that's usually what I only focus on. I don't focus on geese or ducks at that point. I just try to, keep it to sandhill cranes and offer guys a great experience when it comes to hunting them. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'd have to think, of course, we're, halfway off topic. We're still talking shooting birds.
Yeah, we're cool.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of almost like in some ways, like not 100%, but like have like if a person wants to go do that and have that experience, like you kind of like that's one of the few places you're going to do it. Like you almost have a monopoly on it to where people are they're sucking to Texas like a cupped flock, to go get some of them sandhills. So everything I've seen, I've never hunted them myself. I've seen a ton of them. We have a lot of them here in Wisconsin. In fact, I saw a couple.
Yeah, y'all can't shoot them. Yeah, no? Y'all can't shoot them. Yep.
And there's, from anecdotally, seems like we got a fair amount of them.
A ton of them. Yeah.
When I lived in Nebraska, we had a ton of them. I think Colorado has a season, don't they?
Colorado does. Yes, they do. Yeah.
So, but that's super cool. Now I'm talking Texas. I love Texas. I shot an aoudad in Texas actually one time.
Nice.
Super, very optics intensive hunt. That was a cool hunt. I really enjoyed that.
Absolutely.
But when I think of Texas, I think of a lot of things, but I don't think like, oh man, I'm going to go waterfowling. Like, what's the waterfowling vibe there?
It's a lot bigger than what you would think. I mean, there's a lot of people that waterfowl hunt in Texas. What people really get sucked to is like the Panhandle, Amarillo, Lubbock. Shooting lesser Canadas. Shooting a bunch of little geese. And it's, the West Texas has always had great waterfowl hunting. Don't get me wrong, but it's very sparse. It's where the water is. And that's one of the things that year by year it's going to differ every year. Due to rainfall, especially out here where I'm at. If you ain't got the water, they're not coming, or they're going to keep going and maybe go down to the coast or whatever. But yeah, Texas as a whole has a lot of history and heritage when it comes to waterfowl hunting, especially down like on the coast. You got guys down there shooting redheads, and that was always such a huge deal. And like the Eagle Lake area, like outside of Houston and Katy, Eagle Lake used to be like the goose capital of the world. Guys would, I remember watching videos in the early 90s, like hanging out with my dad on a Saturday afternoon, and these guys are in Texas shooting snow geese and speckle bellies. And it's like, oh my God, this place is crazy, But obviously due to a lot of farming practices and people moving to those areas, it's not what it used to be. But yeah, man, Texas in general, it's got a lot of waterfowl heritage and history, no doubt about it.
That's cool, man. I dig it. So let's jump into, I guess, the meat of this podcast here. And so we kind of got, like I said, we're going to go through like maybe some of you like your best or coolest or under the radar tips, and kind of all the main categories that have to do with waterfowling. So one thing, and that's really with, any hunting or fishing, and I'd say it definitely falls into the waterfowl category. Weather. Like weather can affect a lot of different things, good or bad. What's your weather tip, or is there like a weather pattern that's like, man, like a lot of people don't pay attention to this, but man, they really should.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like anything else, you've got, barometric pressure, you got moon phases, you've got wind, you've got, all of the things, you have to pay attention to. In my opinion, a good sunny, windy, high pressure kind of day, the ducks should be feeding. They should be moving around. And people always say, well, you hear guys all the time, like if it's raining and drizzling, cloudy, cold, it's like, man, this is a ducky day. This is a really ducky day. It's like, man, a lot of times you want that sunshine. You want those blue skies, because what that creates is shadows, and you have to take advantage of those shadows when it comes to hiding. On a gray, overcast day, the duck has all the advantage when it comes to sight. But on a sunshiny day, blue sky, creating a bunch of shadows, you as the hunter have the advantage when it comes to concealment 100%. But yeah, man, like just like anything else, the weather has huge impacts on when they fly, when they're going to eat, how far from the roost are they going to fly? If it was blowing, if you had a 5 to 10 mile an hour wind yesterday and those ducks are flying a half a mile to feed, tomorrow it's supposed to blow 25 to 30. Chances are they're not going to fly that half a mile or a mile to go feed somewhere. They're going to stop short and try to feed somewhere else where they're not expending as much energy trying to fly into the wind on a lot of days. So, you really have to pay attention to a lot of those things, and especially, when you're scouting, you have to think about that weather for tomorrow if you're scouting last night. I mean, it's a huge deal. So, but like I said, in my personal opinion, my preference, I want blue skies, sunshine, a 15 to 20 mile an hour wind, is perfect.
Man, and I've heard that a lot, and I'm hearing it from you, and it always seemed like counterintuitive to me in a way, because I'm like, oh man, like high sun, I'm gonna stick out like a sore thumb, because it's like beating down on you. But like you said, it creates those shadows and makes it a little bit tougher for those guys to see. And when you were talking about the weather affecting how, you guys are always like scout, right?
100%. Yeah.
But also you see those birds over here maybe one day, but like you said, now the weather's supposed to get snarly, maybe high winds. Like you've got those birds scouted, you got them picked out, but maybe they're not going to show up there because they're, like you said, they might stop short. So keeping that in mind.
Exactly. Yeah. And it happens. It happens 100%. You're like, man, why aren't they doing it? And it's like, well, they didn't have to fly into a 30-mile-an-hour headwind yesterday, to get here. So, or it could be, a little snowstorm came through the night before and laid a blanket of snow down, and they really don't remember where they were last night. And they got to try to pinpoint exactly where they were in the field. And, all those things. I mean, it just changes every day. And that's why scouting is so important. You got to be watching them, every day and seeing what they're doing.
If it wasn't frustrating, it wouldn't be fun. What about?
That's exactly right. Kind of like golf.
Exactly. What about a calling tip? Like maybe it's have even if you're predominantly hunting mallards, maybe having a different call in your lineup to mix it up, or a sound that you think is underutilized. Or man, what do you got there? What are your calling tips of the day?
So when it comes to calling tips and, what calls to maybe have on your lanyard or whatever, I always have just your standard duck call, your hen mallard, that you're going to do your feed chuckle, your comeback call, your lonesome hen, your bouncing hen, whatever it's going to be. But I always keep a Drake whistle, something you could imitate some widgeon, or a Drake mallard or pintail, or, because a lot of times, it's not just going to be a feed of mallards, or it's not just going to be a full feed of pintails or whatever. You're going to have a lot of different ducks making a lot of different noises. And if you got one guy down on the left end of the spread, if he's blowing his mallard call, and you got a guy on the right end and he's doing a Drake whistle, or, a little pintail, or a little widgeon, mixing it up a little bit, it just adds that much more realism, to your spread. And, I find a lot of times, over calling is huge. Okay. You can absolutely flare ducks with your duck call 100%. One of my main, deals that I always tell everybody, if they're coming, don't make a noise. If they're coming at you and they're cupping up, you don't need to make any noise, or just call nice and soft, a couple little feed chuckles, a couple little quacks. You don't need to blow them out with, mack, 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 mack. You can just, hit them with some nice, some nice quacks, some nice feed chuckling, whatever. But, as rule of thumb, I mean, if they're coming, you really don't need to make a noise. You really don't.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a kind of a case of like less can be more,
Less is more. Absolutely. Yes. Less can be more a lot of times.
No, that makes sense. It's like when you need to call, it's because they're not coming.
Exactly. Yeah. Or, maybe they'll come in and they'll take a look, and you might just be calling low, doing some easy calling or no calling at all. But whenever they start to go and make that big swing, then you hit them with the mack, 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 something loud and aggressive, get back here, get in here. This is where we're all at. And a lot of times, that's when you'll catch them, is on that first swing. And then you hit them with a little bit of aggressive calling, and then a lot of times they'll come in, they'll cup up and come in.
Yeah, no, I like
but
that.
You don't want to just blow them out, like if they're coming, a lot of guys have a tendency to overcall, no doubt about it.
Yeah. I mean, what's the fun in, not yelling at them a little bit.
That's right.
What about, you're talking about, those ducks circling, and I know I've had it a handful of times where it's like, man, circle, mm-hmm. And they won't commit. I think they're ducks that have been hunting a little bit. They're wise to the game. I mean, you got Absolutely. Is that just tough ducks and just kind of keep doing what you're saying?
Yeah, that's just stale birds. That's what that is. We call them stale ducks. Ducks that have been in the area for, maybe a week, 2 weeks. They've been getting hunted. We're constantly waiting on the next push, the next push of birds coming from the north. But in a lot of cases, if those cold fronts aren't coming down, through the upper Midwest, it's not going to push them new ducks down from Canada or wherever you may be south of. It's not going to push them ducks down. And when that is an instance where, stale ducks are the kind of ducks that you don't want to call at, because they've been hearing guys call at them for the last 2 weeks. They've seen mojos. They've seen that same little decoy spread that everybody does. You really need to try to mix it up, and, no mojos, maybe no calling, maybe build a wide spread, something very open, not all compact together, make yourself look bigger than what you really are, is what I tell guys all the time. Don't be afraid to spread them decoys out. And then, just keep one little pocket in the middle, to where they might want to land or try to land. But, you definitely get into instances and circumstances throughout the season where you just have stale ducks, and it's not anything that you might be doing wrong, or it might not be anything that you're necessarily doing right or better than the next guy. It's just those ducks, they get accustomed to, getting shot at, which, there's really nothing, there's nothing you can do better than the next guy to, really up your, to really make it a better hunt. Sometimes you just dealt the hand that you've got,
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, and that goes back into the whole weather thing that we're talking about. So if you
100%.
were, I guess with that in mind, you're talking about, a cold front coming in from the north, what are you, where are you hoping to be when that happens? Are you hoping to be on the front edge of that, on the back edge of that, or does it matter? Or both?
It does matter. In my opinion, I want to be on the front edge of the front. The day before that 25-mile-an-hour north wind and a 25-degree temperature drop, the day before that happens, those ducks are going to be feeding very aggressively. They know that something's coming. And a lot of times what can happen, post frontal, is they might change what they've been doing the last couple of days because that front has moved through, things have maybe calmed down, or it brought a lot of cold weather and it froze some potholes, some of the smaller water that those ducks might be using, to where they need to go find a new roost. And if they're going to go find a new roost, that entails finding new feed also. So typically, you want to be on the front edge of that weather pattern and be scouting hard every day. It's a lot like deer hunting. Guys all the time are like, man, I didn't have the right weather to go in and hunt that stand that day. Well, you have that too in duck hunting. It's like, if we would just get, if the wind would shift from the west to the northeast, which it's supposed to on Thursday, then you need to scout Tuesday and Wednesday, make sure those ducks are doing what they're doing, and then go hunt them Thursday. Because you could ruin fields of thousands of ducks by going in and hunting it on the wrong day, whether you don't have the right hide, or there's nowhere to hide even, or the wind's just wrong, or any of those factors. They all add up into that. And, typically, me personally speaking, I'm looking to be on the front edge of that front. And I'm looking days ahead, to say, look, what's going to be the best day to get in here and get after these birds.
Nice. Decoy spreads, which you gave, in my opinion, a pretty hot tip of, if you've got those tough birds, if you've got those stale birds, I mean, they've seen it, of really kind of spreading that out.
Yeah.
Any other decoy tricks up your sleeve?
Yeah. So, a lot of people do a spread. We call it the Nike swoosh, where you run a line of decoys and you fan it out on one end and build it up on one end and leave them a nice pocket in the middle. It's just like a Nike swoosh or a U or a half a moon, whatever you want to call it, and that's like a typical base spread that kind of everybody does. Right. But it's okay to mix it up. It's okay to not have your kill hole or, where you want to finish ducks right in front of the blinds. A lot of times what I'll do is like an X, with the blinds right in the middle, to where you got an open side on the left, you got an open side on the right, and an open side in front of you. Typically, they're not going to be landing behind you if you got the wind right, but just picture an X of decoys, right? And your blinds right there in the middle. You're giving them multiple ways to approach and finish, into your spread. Now, there's a lot of different things you can do. Like I said, reference earlier about making yourself look bigger than what you really are. Say you've only got, 5-6 dozen decoys. Okay. Well, you can make that 5-6 dozen decoys look like 10 dozen if, you are spacing them out, putting them in different little groups, and building your spread and I'm saying farthest decoy could be 60, 70 yards away, but they're not going to finish. You don't want them to finish there, obviously, but you want them to know, like, hey, there's a bunch of ducks here, they're all down, they're all feeding, it's like, this is the spot we want to be. But I'm not trying to give away all my secrets and, decoy patterns out on the web, but, don't be afraid to mix it up. Another good one, we've kind of nicknamed the bowling alley, to where you've got, one line of decoys running north and south, another line of decoys running north and south, and you've got an open area where you just kind of trickle a few in the middle, kind of like a couple of pins, right? A couple bowling pins, put a couple in the middle. And a lot of times what they'll do is, instead of landing with the bigger groups on either side, they'll want to land right in the middle of that lane you've created. But, just things like that, to try to mix it up a little bit rather than your basic half moon, Nike swoosh, whatever you want to call it.
I like it. Yeah, Nike might be making a new duck shoe here pretty soon. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
hey, trademark. Hey, that's my patent. I should get the checks from that. I like
the bowling alley one, man. Like literally a runway for landing right there. Bam, right in front of you. Absolutely. What about you guys fire a few shells every year?
Oh yeah.
What's your go-to or shot size, or is there like a common maybe mistake that guys make in their selection or choice? Like, what do you got going on there?
So, started out, back in the day, it's like, man, I need a 3.5 inch triple BB, 12 gauge to shoot these ducks. Well, you really don't. Okay. If you're shooting them where you should be, within 30, 35, 40 yards, anywhere within there, you can get away with shooting smaller loads than that. One of my favorite all-time duck loads is like a 1.5 ounce number 4, or 1.5 ounce number 2s, 3 inch. I've never really had, a ton of preference. And it's actually kind of, it made me happy this year, or last year we got sponsored by Kent Ammunition, and I've always shot Kent fast steel. I've always thought it was like one of the best duck loads ever. The Kent 3 inch number 2s were some duck killing dudes. And now that, we're fortunate enough to get partnered up with them, I'm like, I keep telling Logan and Ryan, you tell them to send them 1.5 ounce number 2s fast steel. That's what we want. That's what we want. But it's changing though. The game is changing because a lot of guys are going to sub gauge shotguns. They're shooting 20 gauges or shooting 28s or 16s or even 410s. There's a couple companies out there, making some beefier loads for sub gauge shotguns. And, if you can kill a duck within 30 yards, you can shoot it with a 12 gauge or a 28 gauge. You don't necessarily need the 12 gauge 3 inch 1.5 ounce, number 2. But me personally, my preference for sure for ducks in general are 3 inch number 2s or 3 inch number 4s. You get into geese, you might need BBs or 1s. Kent makes a great 1.5 ounce number 1 shot, and that's been really good for the big geese, the big Canadas, and even the Sandhill cranes down here. Those guys come down and we do an episode down here every year crane hunting, and I'm like, bring them number 1s, baby, bring them number 1s. But for ducks, I'm a 2 to 4 kind of guy, 2s or 4s.
Yeah, I mean, you guys shoot a lot more ducks than I have or ever will, but I've kind of settled on I like a 3 inch 4. That's kind of been my go-to as of late.
Yep.
Right, wrong, or otherwise, but it's just kind of what I settled on. I used to shoot.
You get more pellets obviously in a number 4 than a number 2. And that's a lot of guys are into like shot count. Whenever they're looking at ammo, it's like, okay, well, how many number 4s can we cram into a 3 inch shell? But yeah, man, 4s are great.
Yeah, I like
duck loads.
I like I think of it. I got more chances.
Yeah, there. Right. But hey, it only takes one. I mean, it's some of those ducks you like shoot out like, like the last duck going away. It's like I must have got one pellet in there in the exact right spot because there's no way he should have fell. But yeah, absolutely. More pellets, better chance. Better chance.
At least for a guy like me. What about so we've talked about scouting, but maybe not specifically. What's your scout tip? What's your tip of the week for scouting?
First of all, get you a good set of optics.
God, I baited him into it.
You really did. If I had to recommend some, I would go with the Vortex Diamondbacks or the Viper HDs. I mean, hey, good price point, good glass, great in low light conditions. But no, you need good glass. A lot of times you're scouting early in the mornings and late into the evenings. I'm talking, some nights you sit out there until it's dark. A lot of times we want to watch where the birds are. Say we might not know where the birds are roosting. Okay. We'll sit there until we cannot see anymore just to see what direction or where those birds are going after they feed so that we know going into the hunt the next day. It's like, okay, we literally watched all the ducks leave this field. They went over to Uncle Bob's mud hole, roosted there, and they're going to come back in the morning. And without good optics, you're not going to be able to sit there until dark and watch those birds, But in general, my biggest thing when it comes to scouting is I don't just drive by a field and be like, okay, there's a couple groups of ducks going in there. Looks like it should be good. I want to sit there. I want to watch where these ducks are landing, where they're feeding, how many are coming in at a time, how aggressively they're feeding on the ground. If they're feeding really fast, moving through the field at a fast rate, there's a good chance that those ducks are feeding that feed out to where they're having to go closer to the edges to find ample amounts of soybeans or wheat or barley or whatever. A lot of times they'll feed out an area in a field and have to move to another area. So it's not just, hey, we saw 100 ducks going into this wheat field. Looks like it should be good for tomorrow. You really need to look and make sure that you are exactly where they were the night before. And like I said, this goes back to weather and all that. All that is speculatory. Okay. That's everything changes. And I understand that. But as a basic rule of thumb, you want to know exactly where those birds were the night before, and go in and mark a pin or, back in the day before Google Maps, we used to use blue reflectors. We would wait for all the ducks to leave. We would drive out into the field and put a blue reflector by the slough or the rock pile, whatever you're going to set up by. So when you're driving out there, 5 in the morning, it's like, okay, you don't follow the blue dot on your phone anymore. It's like you need to start looking for the blue reflector that's out there, which is crazy. Now anymore, it's like, okay, we'll get on Onyx, drop a pin. It's like, here we go. It'll track you right in there. It's so easy now than what it used to be back in the day, like where we first started. And whenever I first started guiding, I mean, I didn't have an iPhone when I was 18 in 2006, guiding. Like I had a flip phone, dude. I had a Motorola flip phone, but yeah, it goes back to wanting to be on the X. You want to be, right where the ducks were the night before, and you want to imitate exactly what they were doing the night before. But it all starts with putting miles on. And good optics, and from there, knocking on doors, building relationships with farmers, being respectful, not tearing stuff up, picking your trash up. I mean, all of that goes hand in hand, and if you don't go about doing it the right way, then, Uncle Bob might not let you hunt his mud hole anymore. Or, you're not going to be able to get permission because them farmers talk, I mean, they do. And, but like I said, it all comes down, starting with putting in the windshield time, putting the miles on, and sitting there and looking at the birds and studying what they're doing, not just looking at them and driving away.
Yeah, man, that seems, I wasn't really thinking about it that way. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, the presence of birds. There's birds here. This is where they want to be, right? But you're really taking a look at like, how are these birds behaving? How are they feeding? How are they moving through? Like, yeah, they're moving through quick because they're not finding anything. And when you were saying when they were getting towards the edges, is that because there's still food at the edges, but that's also probably like the least safe place to be? So it's kind of like their last resort in that field?
Right. And a lot of times, we try to utilize field edges for when it comes to hiding, to where, we're trying to maybe pull some birds a couple 100 yards right where they were. But as a whole, those ducks they're going to be somewhere out in the middle, the majority of the time, because they feel safe. They can see predators coming from a long ways away. But like I said, if you watch ducks that are comfortable, they're feet, they move around pretty slow, and they're not moving as a group through the field. They're kind of staying right there in one little spot. But if you're scouting ducks and watching ducks, for even 30 minutes, if you sit there and watch ducks for 30 minutes on the ground, they're going to move quite a bit from where they landed and originally started feeding if there isn't ample enough food there. Like I said, they'll start getting towards the edges. And it's crazy how they find the sprayer tracks, like from big sprayers coming through, because it just knocks down that wheat or soybeans or whatever. It's crazy how they will find those sprayer tracks and just be in the sprayer tracks. It blows my mind sometimes, but they know it's like, hey, here's a mile and a half of food going this way. You got a big field, say you got a full section, mile by mile. Them sprayer tracks are going a mile north and south through that field. There's plenty of food if they just keep following the tracks, you know what I mean? And it's crazy to me how they find that stuff sometimes, or they just know. But yeah, you got to watch the ducks on the ground. You got to really see what they're doing and watch how they behave. Because I've seen instances where I've watched ducks for hours one afternoon in a field, and they're mowing through it. And I mean, mowing through it. Next day, come back to hunt, and you don't see a duck. Not one duck, because they fed it out, or, they picked up and left, or they just, it's very clear why, like after seeing it. And then the next day it's like, there's a reason these ducks are feeding this fast going through this field, because there ain't a lot of food left, so you got to pay attention to little things sometimes.
Yeah. Little things, big things. What about, like, what's your comfort level, or like, what's like, where in general, like the duck's comfort level of like how far do you need to stand off, like, and like glass those ducks without bugging them?
That's a great question, actually, because, man, you can darn sure get too close and you can bump them, and a lot of times they won't come back. But me personally, I mean, I try to stay at least half a mile.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and this goes back to stale ducks and pressured ducks also, because, I mean, they know when a truck stops on a gravel road for more than 20 seconds, hey, he's looking at us. I mean, they pick up on these things. A lot of times you'll see ducks going into a field. It's like, okay, you can't stop here. Let's go up here to the next section line and try to look back at them from like a half a mile or 3/4 of a mile away. And it's just, this happens. You might not be the only people looking at that feed. There might be some other guys from town like, hey, and a lot of times they'll stop right where you shouldn't stop as you're watching them from, the next section line. It's like, oh, come on, man, but it is what it is. Not everybody realizes. But yeah, I mean, we try to stay back and not get too close, because, we don't want them to know we're even looking at them. We want them to stay comfortable. And, but yeah, and there's, obviously you can be closer, you can use the topography of the land maybe to help you get a little closer to scout and figure out right where they are. But, as a rule of thumb, I mean, I'm going to back off and watch them, from a very, from a good ways away, from a good vantage point, and put the glass on them and see what they're doing.
Yeah, I imagine just like, big game or something like that, standing off and a little bit of elevation, find a glassing point or a
Absolutely.
knob or a high point so you can
Hmm.
look down and get some
Yeah.
visibility. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
for sure, man. What about, you got, what do you think, everybody's got their favorite things. What about a favorite dog breed? What's your number one duck dog?
I'm a black lab guy, man. I've had black labs my whole life. And it's not to say I don't like yellows or I don't like chocolates, whatever, but man, I'm a black lab guy. I really am. I think, I don't know, I just think they're the best. And I think mine's better than anybody else's. Just like everybody, like I've got the best duck dog, I promise you. But no, everybody always says that, but yeah, I mean, obviously I'm proud lab owner. I've got a 6-year-old named Millie, and she's a machine, dude. She really is. But I've just always been partial to black labs my whole life.
You got the bumper sticker that says my black lab is an honor student that
yeah, my black lab smarter than your honor student.
yeah, something like that. I love it, man. Well, hey, we've talked a lot about and covered some awesome ground about how to kill these darn things. They're amazing to eat. Sometimes I feel like they get a little bit of a bad rap. What's your favorite duck to eat? And like, you don't necessarily need to go through the recipe, but like, how do you like it prepared?
Yeah. So, everybody has a preference when it comes to their favorite duck or whatever. In my opinion, blue wing teal, and even some of the diver ducks like canvasbacks and redheads. A lot of people think that those ducks are just eating mud, but actually they're eating wild celery, or they're eating little, shrimps or little crustaceans. But, if you look back over the years, I mean, in the early 20s and 30s, I mean, market hunting was, the number one duck for a market hunter in the 20s and 30s was a canvasback. And it's not because they didn't taste good. It's because they tasted very good. But, in my opinion, I think a blue wing teal is some of the best duck you can get. And pintails are usually really good. And not to say mallards, aren't good to eat. But, I tell people all the time, if you think of livestock, if you've got cows that you're feeding, corn and, all the good stuff every day, they're going to build up a bunch of fat. They're going to be really, really good to eat. Now, some of those ducks that are, like a shoveler, a shoveler's down there eating mud. You don't want to eat a shoveler. He's going to taste like what he's eating, so yeah, blue wing teal, and don't be afraid to cook up, some of those divers, you shoot some redheads or canvasbacks, anything like that. And one of my favorite ways to prepare, some ducks is a stir fry. Stir fry is very easy. You cut up some duck breasts, marinate it in some teriyaki, some soy sauce, throw in some bell peppers, some onions, a little bit of sesame oil, serve it over some rice. You can't go wrong. Everybody does like the poppers wrapped in bacon. It's easy. It's a finger food. But I mean, if you're looking to cook some duck for some guys, got a bunch of guys in camp. I mean, I recommend doing stir fry, all the time. I mean, it's good. It's easy. It's usually pretty quick. And now there's hundreds and thousands of ways, obviously, you can prepare a duck. Don't get me wrong. But just, quick and easy, you got the poppers, or like I said, do the stir fry. Try the stir fry.
Man, I like it. Well, not only am I a better duck hunter after this conversation, at least I think I am. I'll have to try some of these things. I'm hungry, Joe. So
no doubt.
So thank you. So now I need to put some of these skills to the test so I can get some ducks to eat, make that stir fry. But dude, awesome, right. Man.
We need to get you on a trip, dude. We need to get you come on an H-Dub episode. Come on a trip with us.
Man, it'd be too much fun. We should definitely put that together. Lock it in. We'll figure it out. So no, I appreciate the invite. That'd be amazing. So, dude, thank you so much for joining us and making the time to chat in between your busy season. It sounds like you're getting ready to just go hammer down on these things for the next 8 or so weeks. So you'll have to keep us posted, let us know how you do. And like I said, we appreciate you joining us and chatting quackers.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. And as a whole with Heartland Waterfowl, we appreciate the partnership with Vortex. Y'all have been great to us for a bunch of years now. And also just want to let everybody know that might be listening. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel for Heartland Waterfowl this year. Like it, subscribe it. We're doing something a little different this year. Every day after a hunt, we come back, we go through some footage, put a little 2 to 5 minute video out there, letting guys know, hey, what we did today, and what we're doing, what we're thinking about doing for tomorrow. So just one more way for some viewers and some fans to kind of get some behind the scenes or some up to date footage. All this fall, we'll be doing that. So make sure you guys are liking the YouTube, subscribing, and commenting for sure, and be on the lookout for some awesome new footage, next summer. And like I said, I appreciate the opportunity and appreciate the conversation. It's been a lot of fun.
No, man, appreciate you guys. We appreciate all the support. Check them out, guys. Heartland Waterfowl, kicking out some amazingly cool content. Joe's got the shirt right there. And heck, buy yourself a shirt or a hat. So, no, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks again, Joe. And good luck out there, everybody. Let's shoot them in the face.
There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.